Welcome to Sports Chat, live from that Italian cruise liner that's sinking. Fans got a lot to talk about this week.
It's way too cold to be in the Italian cruise liner.
Oh no, that's in the northern world. A lot to talk about this week. Campbell County won big against Hardin Valley, homecoming this week. Courtney Miller is our homecoming queen. Courtney Morris honored for 1,000 points. Jacksboro and the Jacksboro boys team, will follow girls team, got revenge wins in the second Battle of the Birds. So lots to talk about this week.
The big thing this week, of course, still the Halls incident.
Oh yes, yes.
Lots of talking on the Halls.
Of course, you're getting the Knoxville media to some extent, especially WBIR, and
Volunteer TV too.
Giving some very biased coverage of it.
Now, and to their credit, the News Sentinel wrote a very unbiased story about it.
They cover it simply from the Halls perspective, which is, frankly, the incorrect perspective. I mean, I would say it was Campbell County's fault if it was, but, you know, if you're going to defy school administrators and officers about something like that, then you probably should expect to get treated like you were treated.
And I'll say again, Jeffers took him down very gently.
Considering the situation with that big of a crowd of angry people over there, Jeffers was over there by himself, you know. They're lucky he didn't just break out his pepper spray. You know, if the school administrator or the school resource officer, any officer tells you to do something, you simply follow that command and do it immediately. You don't stand and argue with it. Those idiot Halls fans, why would you argue with them? Especially if the guy supposedly was a former police officer, according to his mother. You know not to argue with police officers. It never ends well. And
especially, you don't put your hands on them.
No.
You don't put your hands on an officer.
You don't even act like you're going to put your hands on them. I mean,
it's bad. It ends badly for you.
Hopefully, the guy gets sentenced harshly for it.
You know, his initial court date was yesterday. He didn't even have the guts to show up himself. He sent a lawyer.
You know, we'll see what happens with it. I'm sure he'll plead guilty to some minor charge, but just do what the administration of the school tells you. Your administration worked out beforehand that you would leave that way. And if your fans, frankly, weren't showing their butts the entire game, especially that student section you brought with them, with your painted chests, and, you know, it's one thing to get into the game, but this, you know, be sprouting out, hey, you're inbred basically across the gym at Campbell County students is not really a good thing to do. Of course, it's shown the late 20s fan who was arrested also yelling out expletives and about inbreeding didn't really endear himself to anybody around here.
You know, okay, we've hosted most of the district already because literally Oak Ridge is the only district game at home left. None of the other fans behave like that.
No, I mean, Hardin Valley last night, classy, respectful. Anderson County, classy, respectful.
Carnes.
Clinton, Carnes.
You know, Carnes and Campbell County have a lot of basketball history.
Yeah, a little bit bad with some fights and stuff back in the 80s, but I mean, classy organization. I mean, Halls immediately got there, immediately very unclassy in how they acted.
Yeah.
The fans, the adults are what disappointed me. I can understand those students doing that.
You can forgive students for that.
But the adults were just laughing it up and you know, had no problem with it. If I had said something like that in public and my mother or whatever was around, I would have been called down for it. You know, their parents sat behind them and just, whatever they want to say, it's funny.
Yeah, you know, even the first district school board member sitting around giggling at the inbred jokes. Way to have the best interest of the students at heart, Rector. Way to have the best interest of the students at heart.
Way to support your district there.
Well, you know, if I lived in the first district, I definitely would be making a change than voting for someone who. I honestly can't see how you have the best interest of Campbell County at heart when you're supporting Halls.
When you're doing, yeah.
And your job as school board member is to support Campbell County.
Now,
especially on a night when they rededicated the gym. I said that before. That's ridiculous to show up in Halls.
It's just unrespectful. Just disrespectful.
Now, actually, on the News Sentinel, though their story was unbiased, you could make comments on it. And there was somebody that actually claimed that by putting the people through that door, it was forcing them to walk an extra 100 yards to the parking lot.
You know, if anything, it's actually closer to the parking lot to go out that door.
Yeah, it's actually, it does. The parking lot's literally 40 feet across some grass, and you're in the parking lot. But, you know, of course, he was all very biased and slanted with the YouTube video and everything. I mean, I don't say anybody can watch the YouTube video and think the Halls fans were mistreated. They were asked to do something by administration, refused to do it. One fan got belligerent. He was dealt with appropriately.
I mean,
and very lightly compared to what he probably should have been.
David Jones and Craig Ivey were over there. These are not confrontational men by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, so it was worked out before the game that they would leave via that exit. You know, that apparently that guy took exception to it. I was videoing from right behind him the entire game. He was really happy with the chanting going on and everything. He was on cloud nine with it all. He was just, I guess, apparently didn't have very much common sense.
He seems like he was one of those guys that graduating high school was the worst thing that ever happened to him. We all know the type.
Yeah. Positive news, Campbell County, I said the girls, they got back on the winning track. They had a tough loss at Claiborne County. I mean,
right. Boys eked out a tough win at Claiborne County. I mean, it was a...
I was seeing the foul stats, and I don't know, it happened again like it happened at the Cumberland Gap game.
Yeah, I talked to Josh Parker, said he believed it was literally the same set of refs. 45
free throws for Claiborne County and the girls.
10 for Campbell County, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 45 to 10 on free throws. And that's the same thing that happened in the Cumberland Gap game. It's ridiculous. I don't know what it is about Claiborne County. I would never play another game there.
No, absolutely not. In fact, now that Sean doesn't coach there anymore, I don't know that I'll ever attend another game up there.
But the girls bounced back with a district win. I mean, the Claiborne County win, you want to win every game you can, but it really is sort of meaningless in the big scheme of things. It's not going to affect their district standing. It's not going to affect anything they do post-district. One of their players, Courtney Morris, and she lost her grandmother. We send our condolences out to the entire family. You know, Barbara was a good woman, knew her all his life. You know, she's been playing with a really heavy heart the last 2 games.
And still playing really hard.
She gives it her all and goes out there. All the girls give it their all. They've all been picking her up to comfort her. It's good to see that. You know, our condolences over the entire family.
And Courtney did get the big honor of the 1,000 points, and she broke the 1,000-point record during the holiday tournaments.
Yeah, and this is the homecoming was appropriate not to honor her.
Right. You know, she was presented with some pictures, a basketball. You know, she's in a very elite club. She makes it a baker's dozen. That's 13 for those of you that
13 and 35 years of basketball.
Yeah.
So, you know, the boys doing well. I'm glad to see they've got 2 wins in a row now. They've got a big district win.
Last night they had a pair of players that scored 20 points each. Corey Poteet and Nick Litton had an impressive night shooting the ball.
It was a good night on homecoming. I really, Hardin Valley's usually got a solid squad in every sport they field with the talent pool they get to draw from out there at West Knoxville. So, you know.
Yeah, in fact, Hardin Valley, you know, they did well postseason-wise last year.
And, you know, Campbell County does have a hard way to go in the fact that they're going to turn around and play them again Monday night.
In a makeup game.
In a makeup game.
So that's out at Hardin Valley.
We recommend you all go out. You all go to Double Dogs either before or after the game because they have really awesome food there.
Maybe even both.
The fall at Jacksboro games, Patrick alluded to earlier, exciting night. Coach Parker got his big signature win for the year.
Right.
Beating La Follette. Really, the first game was very close. This game wasn't all that close. La Follette couldn't make shots.
And yeah, that happens sometimes. Same thing happened to the Lady Eagles in the opening game.
We just have the knife like that. La Follette got good looks at the basket, and the game would have been close. But I mean, I counted probably 25 missed layups from La Follette.
Sometimes the shots do not fall.
They just weren't going down. And, you know, credit to Jacksboro, credit to Coach Parker. He had his guys ready to play.
Jacob McGuire made a rare 4-point play.
Yeah. He
got the 3-pointer and the foul. Made the foul shot.
They scored well, played well the entire game. Lots of enthusiasm and energy.
Now that's some future Cougars to look at right there. Dallas Griffith, though he didn't have the best game against Jacksboro, has had a very solid season for La Follette. Jacob McGuire has had a very solid season for Jacksboro.
But we saw with the way Trey Torres is playing and how many minutes he gets.
He started against
Coach is
Hardin
willing
Valley.
to put, he's putting the freshman out there to start. Trey does well. Trey has responded very well to the playing time he's gotten and the starts he's gotten, and he plays really well. He doesn't look like a freshman out there.
No, he's showing there's a bright future for Campbell County basketball, because there's some seniors on that team. But I mean, you look, Ethan Simpson will be back, Poteet will be back, Gunnar St. John will be back next year. Obviously Torres. That's a solid young base.
Coach Dawson and Coach Parker are sending out pretty good prospects. I think the future will be okay for Campbell County. The girls are going to lose a lot next year. We'll see. It'll be tough to bounce back. This is one of those kind of this class that came in together a few years ago. I said Courtney getting her 1,000 points. She started 40 straight years. That's rare to happen. Every game she's ever been a Cougar that she wasn't injured, she started. Kristen Chapman, elite athlete, really good basketball player, tough as nails. Amber Young, tough post player. Shayla carried them last night.
Yeah.
They were having trouble scoring from the perimeter, and they kept feeding it into Shayla, and she was making tough shots down low.
I think it's a shame she didn't win the Prep Extra Player of the Week. I mean, they just put the stat line up there, and she did have the weakest stat line before. But the intangible there is, that's another game where she carried the team. Yeah. When the perimeter shots aren't falling, she is the weapon that just pounds those points in.
So, Cougars, they got some big games coming up.
Almost all on the road.
Yeah,
They've got Oak Ridge and Cumberland Gap left at home.
Their front season was loaded up with home games. They're going to have to play, like you said, at Carnes, at Hardin Valley,
at AC,
at Anderson County,
at Halls.
Halls will be a big one. And I hope Campbell County fans go down there and act classfully and respectfully.
It's my understanding that Chief Deputy Aaron Evans himself will be escorting the Cougar fans and administration down there.
I don't expect classy behavior from Halls fans at all.
No.
That's too much to expect, apparently.
Another thing, on the YouTube video that the guy posted, I was reading some of the comments. He's like, well, that's just what happens in basketball. When you win, you storm the floor.
That's really not what happens. You're never supposed to storm the floor, especially a visiting floor.
Yeah.
You're supposed to act classily, act like you've won something before.
Storming the visiting floor is the kind of thing that massive brawls break out over. Yeah. I mean, was it Terrell Owens that decided to dance on the start Texas Stadium that time?
Yeah, he got smashed pretty hard for it by George. Got stripped the ball from the Miami player and the Alabama man played for Alabama. I can't remember his last name now. He got knocked in the next week for doing that. But you just don't do stuff like that on visiting floors and expect it to go peacefully. And especially if the school administration says, hey, they jumped around with each other out there on the floor for a minute or two. And the administration says, hey, let's go, it's time to leave.
Yeah.
You agreed to leave to this. We let you come in here and act like this, leave this way.
Yeah. They let them violate the dress code.
Personally, if I were the school administrators and they were shouting out the "you're your own cousins" and all this inbreeding jokes that they were shouting out, I would have told them to leave during the game. Just because you pay to get into a game, you have no rights at that game. I mean, if you're acting out of line, you can be removed. At any game you go to, you're there as their guest at their courtesy. Even if you bought a ticket, if you buy a ticket to a UT game and you get out of line, they're going to come and they're going to have the police escort you out of the game. I mean, I don't care if you've paid $1,000 for that ticket.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to get escorted out if you're behaving in an unfavorable manner like that.
You may get took to the basement to the UT jail.
They will put you in UT jail if you act poorly enough. But they showed in a way as a fan base how not to act after games.
Yeah,
I mean, you did something before. I mean, I know there's a lot of bad blood. We pounded them in football for the first time at home this year. It's pounded the daylights out of them. And you have the whole school board member son situation going. But there's still no reason to act so classless. There's no reason.
And Campbell County we've had some basketball success, more so than football. I never recall a time where Campbell County students have stormed a visiting floor, ever.
I've never saw it. We had some big games. When I was in high school, we were in the top 10 of the state. And Kent Leach, James Boshears, Bubba Miller, Bo Vincent, those guys were playing. Literally the top 10 in the state. And started out something like 20-0. Never touched the floor. Never saw fans storm the opposing floor.
Literally the only time I remember anything like that, any sort of floor storming happening my entire high school career, was the Carnes Brawl.
Yeah, that's what happens when you do it. You get big brawls break out. But just hopefully, everything goes smoothly at the Halls game.
I do want to give big congratulations to one of our fans down in Anderson County. Haley Cox is about to sign a track scholarship with Milligan College to be a thrower.
That's impressive.
That's good.
We look forward to track season starting and all
Well, that's what we've said about participating in track and other sports like that. You can get scholarships, and every dime will help you and your parents.
Absolutely. Scholarships are nice to have.
Speaking of college and scholarships on the college front, chaos swirling still at the University of Tennessee with the football coaching staff.
We did have a commitment today in Dion Bonner.
Every week, Dooley's having to replace another staff member with someone else. I mean, he hired Alabama's linebacker coach to be the defensive coordinator, and our defensive line coach immediately went straight back to Alabama. And I believe that was just Saban's firing a lightning shot. I'm not sure who got the better deal in that. Lance Thompson had been a good coach for us and probably our top recruiter. And we'll see. I don't trust the Saban tree. I looked it up recently, and his coaches do not have success.
No.
Correct.
They just don't.
I mean, honestly, Dooley's kind of proved that.
And you look at Dooley. His most successful former coach is Mark D'Antoni at Michigan State, who did okay. Two of his coaches went out and one took a defensive coordinator job at Texas Tech. They finished 116th in defense, and he was fired. Another one went to Miami of Ohio, where he had I think a 5-10 record, or 5-15 record, or something along those lines in 2 years. He had a losing record. He was a 10-15 total record in 2 years. It was a losing record. Got hired by Pittsburgh for some, and immediately got arrested, and he was fired. Muschamp, who Fitzpatrick said, he's already, after a year on the hot seat at Florida, ready to be fired. Dooley's on the hot seat at Tennessee, ready to be fired. Great coaches don't often spawn out great coaching trees. Their coaches get hired constantly, but they do not have anywhere close to the success as a general rule as their predecessors. The reason Alabama is good is because Saban's a great coach. That's why their defense is good. And I wouldn't, if we had hired Kirby Smart, their coordinator, who's getting all this publicity, I wouldn't have appreciated that either. I mean, it's because of Saban. It tells you something when you lose all these coaches and your product stays exactly the same. It tells you who's doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's not the coaches doing it, it's Saban doing it. He's that good of a coach. And it doesn't matter who he hires for his defensive coordinator, his linebackers coach, it doesn't matter. They play at the same level. And I guess it's a situation where it was hard to hire someone because of the spot that Dooley's in, where it's win or go home, basically. It's hard to hire a coach and have to guarantee him money. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it works out for the best. I don't know. Like I said, I don't trust the Saban tree of coaching.
Speaking of coaching changes, big move in Indianapolis this week. The head coach is fired. Folks, Peyton Manning's next there. I'm telling you, all you Colts fans might as well get ready to have a big memorabilia burning party.
There's a good shot that Manning doesn't play another down for the Colts. And I'm not saying much about it now. There was a report from, of all people, Rob Lowe, that Manning retired. He's apparently friends with the Colts owner, that Manning was actually going to retire. Archie came out and said that's silly, he's not going to retire.
You know, when I think by sports spoilers news, the first person I think of is Rob Lowe.
He's quite a fabulous actor.
He is.
But
he did well in that one movie.
Yes, that other one too.
Indeed.
But, on the basketball front, they tease you with a little bit of hope. Played with the lead against Kentucky most of the game, and then faded. And then go out and they just laid an absolute egg against Georgia. And Georgia's a terrible team, last in the SEC in offense. We just played awful against 20 turnovers, only 6 assists in the game. Blew a 5-point lead with just under 5 minutes to go. It's just awful. I mean, I'm sorry. People can, you don't have moral victories at the college level.
No.
And people say, oh, we played Duke close, we played Kentucky close. Close doesn't count. And close does not count. You have to win games. And it's relatively close, but with the way that Tennessee's been playing lately, if you're behind by 5 or 6 points, you might as well be behind by 15 points. Because the style of the basketball that Martin has played, it reminds me of Kevin O'Neal when he would try to hold teams in the 40s. You still lose every game. I mean, you might be close, but you're still losing. You know, you got Stokes. Stokes looked great against Kentucky. Comes out and only plays a few minutes against Georgia.
So that kind of blew my mind.
I don't know why he didn't start against Georgia and play 35 minutes. He played like 17, 18 minutes against Georgia. And at one time, I think he was actually the second leading scorer on the team for the game. In that minute of the time. And this is a guy who would have went straight to the NBA probably.
Had the rules not changed.
The rules haven't changed. Or been very close to one of those types of players who go straight to the NBA. You just play the guy. Play the guy while you've got him here.
Get him for 2 years, basically.
You know, we're going to get him for the rest of this year, maybe next year, and that's it. Unless he just doesn't develop at all. But, you know, play the guy. At this point, you know, Cameron Tatum, I'm glad he came here. And he's hit some big shots at UT in his career, but he had like 7 turnovers the other night. He'll have a good game, and then he'll have a game that makes you wish he was never on the team. He's a 5th-year senior. There's no point starting him at this point. Get your younger players experience now and try to build toward next year.
Yeah. Let Tatum contribute from the bench.
Basically, it will be an amazing run for this team to get to the NIT at this point. And people can say Bruce Pearl didn't leave anything or whatever. You know, Bruce Pearl, if he was coaching this team would probably have 5 more wins and 5 less losses right now. Maybe 6.
Probably even better than that, because we'd probably still have Tobias Harris and Scotty
There's
Hobson.
a good chance we would have Harris still at the minimum, and possibly Hobson as well. We would have still gotten Stokes, because Stokes was for sure going to come here before Pearl was ever fired in the first place. But, you know, I would rather have had 3 years of Pearl not recruiting and him on the bench than this. And hopefully it gets better with Martin. I don't know that it will. You just don't know. He's never did anything to prove it one way or the other. Missouri State, it's Missouri State. They were okay. They never made the NCAA tournament while he was there. We'll see. It's a big fall off to go from what Pearl was and the personality that Pearl was to what you get with Martin.
Well, it's like you said, you need the dynamic personality to coach UT basketball.
So that's about it. Playoffs. Tebow got stomped all over, not surprisingly.
You know, it's hard for me to pull for any of the teams left. I'm pulling for the Baltimore Ravens at this point to win it all.
They all have a Tennessee player on this. The only thing. I hate San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
They're the worst hated team I have left in it. And New England's second in that group. Yeah, if neither one of those win it, I'll be happy. But I suspect one of the two will. Harbaugh has proven to be a great coach, an absolutely wonderful coach. And someone called in Sports Talk the other day and suggested Peyton Manning for the coach at UT. And of course, the round table is on Friday, the Sports Writers Roundtable. They just, you couldn't have Peyton Manning coach. Why? He'd be a terrible coach. You don't know what kind of coach he'd be. Great players never make great coaches. I did call in what I wanted to. Just to point out the fact, the way they were going on. Not many people make great coaches, ever. Bad players don't make great coaches either, if you're going to look at it that way. Because there's not that many great coaches who ever come along.
No.
Right. And the very few that do end up keeping their job for years, which also lends less credence to anybody else being able to get that job at a place that's a high level of play.
Let's just look. How long was Bobby Bowden at Florida State?
40 years close to
Yeah, and how long was Joe Pop, Penn State? Longer than that, yeah. Look how long Philip Fulmer was at UT.
Yeah, when you look at UT, Johnny Majors was a great player. And Johnny Majors was a very good national championship winning coach. Steve Spurrier was a great player, won the Heisman Trophy. Steve Spurrier was a great national championship winning coach. Bear Bryant was a great player. He was an All-American at Alabama. A great player. won I think 7 national titles. I mean, they gave some examples like, Dennis Reeves was a good player and an okay coach, or Dan Reeves, and some other examples like that, and just a few examples of bad players. And I think they gave some like baseball examples of Ted Williams. They said he made a poor coach. Baseball doesn't really apply with managing.
No, baseball's such a different ball of wax.
And they gave some basketball, like Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson coached about 20 games. That was it. They didn't mention that Larry Bird actually took Indiana to the conference championship games several times. He was a good coach. Isaiah Thomas has been a very good coach in the NBA. He's a very good player. Football, Mike Ditka was a Hall of Famer, a very good coach. It's just the same. I would say there have been more bad players make bad coaches than good players.
Like Jason Garrett.
Yeah. They're talking about, it's usually the backup. Why would Manning want? And that's the other thing. Why would Manning want to do that? He's rich.
He only loves UT football.
Every coach is rich. Why does Saban go out there every year and coach? He's made $5 million a year for the last 10 years. He's rich. They do it because they're very competitive. Manning is an ultimate competitor.
Yeah. And he loves UT.
And so why
he was willing to give up an extra year in the pros, making X number of money.
Why would Brett Favre keep coming back?
He has nothing to prove.
It's because he's rich. He has nothing to prove. It's because they're competitors. They want to stay competitive in this. And they're like, well, Manning can just take Terry Bradshaw's job here in a couple of years. Why would you want to take a studio job? I know you've got plenty of money. Even though studio job, they ironically said that the studio job pays a lot of money. Why wouldn't you want to take that? But that also Manning was rich. Why would he want to do anything? They were contradicting themselves. But I think he would be a great coach. He's got a great mind for football. He essentially coached the Colts offense for the last 10 years.
It's apparent. It's obvious that he was, because how poorly the offense played without him.
I don't even think
he was out there. He was out there marshaling them together.
It wasn't really fair to fire Caldwell as the coach. I know they had a bad season, but they built the team in a way that it was Manning's team. That's how much they had ridiculously bad drafts since they drafted Manning. They've picked maybe 3 or 4 good players in that entire time since then. Mm-hmm. But Manning masked them that much. And I was listening to Trent Dilfer on ESPN. And they said, who's better quarterback, Eli or Peyton? Eli's doing all these wonderful things in the playoffs. And Trent Dilfer was like, I really, actually kind of surprised you asked me this question. He said, I'm pretty sure that Peyton Manning is the greatest quarterback who's ever played football. He said, the reason is you see this year how much Peyton Manning masked how bad his team was and how much that he did for that team and how much he does for an offense. He said, there's quarterbacks who play and make throws. And there's a lot of them out there over the years that have been great at it. But he said, nobody has ever done what Peyton Manning does for that football team. No one's ever had that much on them for a football team, success. And that's true. And if he can manage it while he's playing, I'm pretty sure he could probably manage it from the sidelines. And, could you imagine the presence of Peyton Manning in the living room? What top quarterback's not going to come here? What top receiver's not going to come here?
For that matter, why wouldn't you want to play defense here? Because the Colts defense is terrible, and they still sort of look like stars when Peyton plays because Peyton keeps the opposing offense off the field.
There'd be nothing but positives from it. I don't know if he'd ever want to. I don't know if he wants to coach. But to suggest that he wouldn't be successful, I think, was stupid of them. And they also suggested, well, Tennessee fans will end up hating him like they end up hating Philip Fulmer. Which, I question that too. Actually, probably a good portion of Tennessee's fan base.
I question how many people hate Phil Fulmer.
I did not like his coaching. I appreciate what he did while he was here.
Get on if you've got a Twitter account, just about everybody that follows UT will talk about how much they loved Fulmer. To this day.
They said, look how hated Johnny Majors is not hated here.
I don't know that Johnny Majors was ever hated here. I actually know more people that hated Phil Fulmer because of the way he got the job than because of the way he exited.
That's what happened with Phil Fulmer. A lot of people didn't like him because of the whole stabbing in the back of Johnny Majors thing. And we'll see what happens with it, though. I would love to have Manning here as a coach someday. It would be one of your dream scenarios. I think Manning's competitive enough that, unlike the people on Sports Talk who said he would have nothing to gain or no reason to want to do it, those top flight athletes are so competitive, they want to stay involved. That's why Michael Jordan bought a team.
It would be when Johnny comes marching home all over again if Peyton Manning came.
And maybe even bigger than that, because of simply how much bigger the success Manning had.
Yeah.
In the pros.
Well, I mean, like I said, Michael Jordan bought a team. Wayne Gretzky bought a team.
I mean, these guys don't just walk away from the sport.
Brad Park bought a team.
Yeah.
And a half.
Yeah. Owns a hockey team and a half. I mean, that's what these guys love to do.
I'm sure that Manning, I doubt if he can imagine a life without football.
No.
I mean, Archie's still involved with football. He's the announcer for the Colts, or the announcer for the New Orleans Saints. He's involved in football, runs a quarterback camp. He's involved in football on many levels.
I'll give you
30 years.
give you a local example. Look at Chad Pennington.
Right.
I mean, he'll be a good coach for somebody someday.
Yeah.
Promise you that. He still comes to Webb every summer to run his football. And he's actually involved.
Yeah,
he's not some guy that walks around. You've been to the camp.
We've seen the evidence of how good players that are good get. You know, he improves the middle school and high school kids that go to his camp because of his presence, his teaching, and the kids just learn from him.
They react well.
They react.
And he brings in some top-notch people to run the game
does.
with him. And he doesn't bring in he'll bring in a player or two. He mainly brings in coaches.
Yes, hopefully, I'm sure that's a lot of UT fans' dream that he comes here someday. Mine personally is that Derek Dooley's still here in 10 years. That's how success I want Derek Dooley to have. I want Tennessee to start winning football.
I think that would be the best for the program. Is to see Derek Dooley blossom the program back to the winning that we know and love that UT can do.
But Steve Spurrier had it right. It's about staying a certain amount of time before the fans get that mad at you. You know, that's why he left Florida. He was at Florida for 11 years. So, you know, that's plenty. So, you know, a lot of coaches, like Fulmer would have stayed here for 20 years. He would have stayed here 10 more years and just been fat and happy with his giant paychecks. But Spurrier was like, no, you get out before the fans start hating. Because, you know, Spurrier, after he quit, after we beat him in 2001, went to the SEC championship game, they were 11-2 that year and went to a BCS bowl and won it. And he got a lot of complaints from Florida fans. He said, you know, I'm done with it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's in South Carolina now, where they're just loving him because they don't know football success.
Yeah, they've never had football success like this, and he's that good of a coach. He's brought them to the top,
and he's that good of a recruiter too. He can recruit some names.
He's on the SEC elite pantheon with the Nealons, the Jordans, Bryant, people like that. We've probably ran pretty long.
Oh yeah, fans, we're out of here. We'll see you next week. Hopefully we'll see you at all sorts of games coming up.